Hey, what is going on, Twintendo Nation? Hope you're having an awesome day. In today's video, we're going to be looking at all the unused type combinations that could be used for Pokemon Sword and Shield. So there are currently 25 Pokemon type combinations that haven't been introduced yet. Last time in Pokemon Sun and Moon, 13 brand new type combinations were introduced, and the generation before, Generation 6, Pokemon X and Y, if we don't count Fairy type, which was brand new then there were 13 brand new type combinations again. So it's fair to say that we can expect at least around 10 new type combinations for Pokemon Sword and Shield. So I'm going to be going over all 25 possible new type combinations. I'm going to be using some fan art Pokemon or Fakemon to kind of just basically symbolize what that type could look like. So make sure to check out all the artists down below in the description. And if you do enjoy today's video, make sure to hit the like button down below. Subscribe to stay up to date with everything Pokemon Sword and Shield, and let me know in the comments below which type you want to see the most introduced in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Without further ado guys, let's just start the video. So the first type we're going to look at is Poison and Fairy, and this type combination is nothing short of incredible. By being part Poison, it counteracts Fairy type's weakness to Poison and makes it neutral by making it only weak to Steel, Psychic and Ground attacks. On the flip side, this type combo is resistant to Grass, Dark and Fairy, whilst being very resistant to Bug and Fighting. So how does this type combination get better? Well, it's actually immune to Dragon moves as well. Now this is one of the best typings I've seen while making this list, and which might explain why it has not been seen yet in any Pokemon game. But we do have to remember Fairy is a relatively new type, so I still think it's possible we can see this type combination one day, and I'd love to see what type of Pokemon would get the Poison Fairy type. Now next up is Dark Electric, and honestly I'm very surprised this typing hasn't happened yet, especially when you look at the design of Luxray. This typing combination is incredibly balanced as it is weak to Fighting, Bug, Ground and Fairy, but it's resistant to Electric, Ghost, Steel, Flying and Dark. It's also immune to Psychic attacks. Now I'd love to see a Dark Electric type and expect to see a Pokemon take up this typing sooner than later. Following that is Bug Dragon, and this is a typing I really expected to see with Flygon. And whilst Ground Dragon made a lot of sense for Flygon, I used to think it was Bug Dragon for the longest time. 4 generations on and we still don't have a Bug Dragon Pokemon. I'm quite surprised we've yet to get this typing, as it is weak to 5 types, but it is also resistant to 6 different types, making it a very balanced typing. The Bug Dragon combination will definitely happen one day, mark my words, and hopefully it'll be a Pokemon from the Galar region. Following that is the Poison Ice type, and whilst this typing would be weak to Fire and Psychic attacks, fighting moves would become neutral instead of super effective. I'm surprised this typing hasn't been done already, as I'm sure there could be a lot of great designs for a Poison Ice Pokemon. Following that is another Poison typing, and this is Poison Psychic, and this is another balanced type that somehow hasn't had an appearance in any Pokemon game yet. It's weak to Ground, Ghost and Dark, but it's also resistant to Grass, Poison, Fairy and very resistant to Fighting. This type combination has to get included someday. Now next up is one of the more interesting types, Normal and Ghost. It's immune to Fighting, Normal and Ghost, so I'm not sure if there's any typing out there that's immune to 3 types, and it's only weak to Dark attacks and resistance to Bug and Poison. This typing for me is far too overpowered, and it's likely we won't see it for any Pokemon, but who knows, maybe Game Freak will decide to use up every typing one day, but this definitely seems to be one of the more overpowered ones for sure. Following that is Steel Poison, and like the majority of Steel types, it has a lot of resistances, and Steel Poison is no exception. It's very weak to Ground as you'd expect and weak to Fire, but apart from that, it's not too different to other Steel types we've seen. If Ferrothorn, which has its weakness switched so it's 4 times weak to Fire and 2 times to Ground, could become a Pokemon, then nothing should get in the way of this typing making its debut in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Following that is a very interesting typing, Fire and Fairy. Now since Fairy is still considered a relatively new type, it's understandable that we've not seen all the typing combinations for it. I personally think the Fire Fairy type could have some very interesting Pokemon designs. This type combination would be very resistant to Bug, and Steel attacks would be neutral instead of super effective. Personally, I really want this typing to happen, and I expect to see it in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Following that one is the Rockin Ghost typing. This is definitely one of the weaker type combinations on this list, but Rockin Ghost is a very interesting typing that I can't imagine a lot of people have thought about before. Whilst being resistant to Bug, Fire, Flying and Poison, it's weak to Grass, Water, Dark, Steel, Ghost and Ground. I think it's pretty understandable as to why we've yet to see this typing, but who knows, it might get its introduction in the Galar region for Pokemon Sword and Shield. After that is Ice and Bug, and this typing is weak to Flying, Steel, Fire and Rock. Now it doesn't sound too bad at first. Yes, it does have its weaknesses, but it's not as good as what it sounds. In fact, Fire and Rock would be 4 times effective in terms of super effectiveness, which isn't good. And in terms of offensive power, Ice and Bug covers quite a few types though, like Grass, Ground, Flying, Dragon, Psychic and Dark. So going forward, attacking wise, this typing could be very, very good, but defensively, it does have its weaknesses. But it is quite balanced, so I could see this being added for Pokemon Sword and Shield. Following that is Bug and Dark, and again this is a typing that is a very balanced one, as Bug and Dark would have weaknesses in Fire, Fairy, Rock, Bug and Flying, as well as having 4 resistances in Dark, Ghost, Grass and Ground, and also having an immunity to Psychic type moves. Nothing too over or underpowered about this type combination, so I think it's likely we will see this type combination very soon. Next up is another Dark type combination, and this is Dark Ferry, one of the most interesting typings on this list. Dark Ferry is weak to Fairy, Steel and Poison, whilst being resistant to Ghost and very resistant to Dark. What's crazy about this typing is that it's immune to both Dragon and Psychic attacks. This might sound like it's a very overpowered typing, but remember, it has 3 weaknesses and only 2 resistances, making most types neutral against it. A very interesting typing that I'd love to see in Pokemon Sword and Shield. After that is normal Poison, which is immune to Ghost and resists Poison, Bug, Grass and Fairy. It's weak to Ground and Psychic, and personally I don't think this typing is too overpowered, and I could definitely see this typing being introduced as well. After that is Ground and Fairy, and you wouldn't think by the sounds of it that this type is anything special, but I can see why Game Freak have yet to design a Pokemon with this typing. Ground Fairy is weak to Water, Grass, Ice and Steel, but it's resistant to Dark, Fighting, Bug and Rock, whilst being immune to both Electric and Dragon. There's a possibility a Pokemon could get this typing since it does have weaknesses, but its immunities and resistances make it a very, very good type combination, probably the best one on this list. Being weak to Psychic, Steel, Flying, Poisoned and Fairy types, it might sound like the Fighting Fairy type combination is a terrible one, but in fact it is resistant to Fighting and Rock, as well as being 4 times resistant to Dark and Bug, and most importantly, immune to Dragon. In the end, it probably is quite a balanced typing, and I feel like this type combo has multiple weaknesses, but is also resistant to many types, and being completely immune to one of the most common typings, Dragon, is a very, very good strength. I could definitely see this typing becoming a reality in the Galar region in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now following that is a typing I'm really surprised we've not seen yet, Grass and Fire. We've seen Water Grass with Ludicolo's evolution line, and we've seen Fire Water with Volcanion, so for me this typing seems a little overdue at this point. And this typing would be weak to Rock, Poison and Flying, but would be resistant to Fairy, Steel and Electric, and have a 4 times resistance to Grass. I think it's only a matter of time until we get this typing, and I'd definitely like to see a Pokemon with this typing in the Galar region. Next up is Fighting and Ground, and whilst this typing is weak to 6 types, including Water, Flying, Ice, Grass, Fairy and Psychic, it does gain an important immunity to Electric type attacks and is very resistant to Rock type attacks. Maybe this typing does have too many weaknesses and that's why we've yet to see it, but it's not out the realms of possibility that a future Pokemon could get this type combination. Following that is Normal and Rock, and this typing keeps all the weaknesses and resistances a Rock type Pokemon would normally have, but it would also gain a 4 times weakness to Fighting. The plus side? It would be completely immune to Ghost. Now, having 5 weaknesses is definitely not a great typing since Rock Pokemon have always been on the weak side, but since it does have immunity to Ghost, I could potentially see this type combination happening. It doesn't mean it's a very good one though. After that is Psychic and Bug, and I don't expect to see this typing anytime soon because it's incredibly weak. If a Pokemon took up this typing, it would be weak to Rock, Dark, Flying, Fire, Ghost and Bug. That's 6 type weaknesses. Whilst it is resistant to a few types like Grass, Ground, Psychic, and 4 times resistance to Fighting, this type is far too unbalanced and will probably never be seen in a Pokemon game, let alone Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now after that is Poison Electric, and before the introduction of the Fairy type in Pokemon X and Y, Poison was a very poor type as we know, as it was only super effective against Grass. However, now it's a good typing against Fairy as well, and giving it the Electric type as well would give it good coverage against Flying and Water type Pokemon. The only downside would be gaining a 4 times weakness to ground, but I think this typing will be a good fit for Generation 8. Following that is another electric type combination, and this is electric fighting. Now flying type moves would become neutral instead of super effective, and it would only be weak to ground, psychic and fairy type Pokemon, so it sounds like a very good typing. Now I'm kinda surprised this typing didn't go to Zeraora, but I personally think this is very good typing and definitely expect to see this in a Pokemon game sooner or later. After that is a pretty weak typing in normal and bug. Now this typing keeps its bug type weaknesses such as fire, flying and rock type attacks. However, the fighting type would be neutral against it. In my opinion, I think this typing is pretty useless as it just keeps all the bug type strengths and weaknesses, and the only change is that fighting moves become neutral instead of resistant. So I don't see this type being introduced for Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now after this is probably one of the most sought after type combinations we haven't had yet, and this is Fire and Ice, and I think we will see this in Pokemon Sword and Shield as it is quite balanced. Although it's 4 times weak to rock and weak to fighting, ground and water attacks, it is resistant to bug, grass, fairy and 4 times resistant to ice. I don't see any reason as to why a Pokemon from the Galar region can't get this type combination. After that is normal and ice, and it's not hard to imagine why Game Freak don't want to make this type combination. This is because adding the normal typing doesn't give you any benefits offensively and increases the ice type weakness to fighting from 2 times to 4 times. The only benefit I guess is being immune to Ghost, but it's not like ice type Pokemon really struggle against Ghost types, so for me this typing is too underpowered and I don't see this being added for Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now the final potential typing that could be added for Pokemon Sword and Shield is kind of a surprising one because it is very good and somehow it includes the normal type in it. So normal and steel might be 4 times weak to fighting and weak to ground and fire, but it resists 10 different typings and is immune to ghost and poison. This type combination might be too good for its own good. But then again, as long as you have a Pokemon with a fighting move, you'll be fine at taking out this Pokemon. So I could potentially see this typing being introduced at some stage, maybe even in the Galar region. So those are all 25 unused type combinations that we may get in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Let me know in the comments which one you'd like to see the most. I'd love to see Fire Grass, Fire Ice, Dark Electric, and even Normal Steel. Normal Steel sounded actually very, very overpowered. Also guys, if you did enjoy today's video, make sure to hit the like button down below. It really helps out the video and the channel more than you can know. And it's also my birthday today as recording this video, so if that doesn't deserve a like, I don't know what does. And guys, if you want to stay up to date with everything Pokemon Sword and Shield, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I will see you on the next video. Peace!